They sold me. Not because I was wicked, but because I was barren. My own parents traded my life for silver and silence, and the pack called it justice. For 10 years I rotted in the dark, waiting for the gods to forget me. But the moon never forgets, and neither does fate. Now the Alpha King who once ordered my death feels my mark burning across his chest again, and he doesn't even know why. He thinks he's saving me. He has no idea he's the one who needs saving. So if you think you know how this story ends, you don't. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because what's coming next isn't a love story. It's a reckoning. The night they sold me, the rain never stopped. The council stood in a half circle cloaked in gray, while my parents knelt at their feet like beggars. I remember my mother's hands trembling, not from shame, but from greed. The Alpha's silver coins clinked into her palm louder than my heartbeat. They didn't even look at me when the pack healer branded my skin. The iron hissed. The word Barren burned across my collarbone, proof that I was broken. The crowd didn't pity me. They cheered. By dawn, I was chained with the other rejects, those too weak, too flawed to belong. The mines swallowed us whole, a place where sunlight never reached. Down there, screams weren't punished. They were ignored. I learned quickly. Mercy doesn't exist underground. We mined until our hands bled. We slept beside the dead. And every night I swore I'd never cry again. Not for them. Not for anyone. 10 years passed like a fever dream, until the king's banners appeared over the horizon. His army came for ore, not ghosts. But when the guards dragged me into the light, something changed in the air. The Alpha King himself was there, Kalen. The man whose mark had vanished a decade ago. He looked at me once and the world seemed to stop breathing. His eyes locked on mine. Confusion first, then disbelief. The scent he thought lost forever hit him like fire. "Who branded her?" he asked. No one answered, and then he flinched, a sharp, pained gasp as his hand flew to his chest, right over his mark. I didn't know what it meant, not yet. But when he stepped closer, I saw it. His mate mark, burning alive beneath his skin, and in that moment, the king who commanded thousands looked at me like a man standing before a ghost he once loved. The chains cut into my wrists as the royal guards dragged me through the storm. The world outside the mines felt unreal, colors too bright, air too sharp. I hadn't seen the sky in 10 years, and the first thing I saw under it was him. The Alpha King. Kalen. The man who once promised to protect me, before the council erased my name. He didn't speak all the way back to the capital, but his scent, that cold mix of pine and smoke, kept circling me like memory refusing to die. Every time I looked at him, the mark on his chest flickered beneath his armor like embers refusing to go out. Inside the palace, the council waited. Wolves in gold robes, their smiles too polished. They called me an imposter. They said I'd forged the mark to manipulate him. Kalen slammed his hand against the table, voice low and dangerous. No one fakes a bond that burns flesh. Still, they wanted proof. The pack healer was summoned, the same one who'd branded me Barren. His eyes went wide when he saw me. He remembered the girl he condemned. "Touch her," he ordered the king. "If the bond's real, you'll know." Kalen hesitated, just long enough for me to see the doubt in his eyes. Then his hand closed around my arm, and in that instant, something inside both of us shifted. His pulse raced under his skin, the same rhythm as mine, the same heartbeat, one echoing the other. He yanked his hand away like he'd been burned. "What are you?" he breathed. I wanted to answer, but before I could, everything tilted. The room, the light, the air. Memories hit me like shattered glass. A younger version of us, laughing under the moon, our hands bound by ribbon in a childhood oath. His promise, "When I am king, you'll never bow to anyone but me." Then blackness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a healer's table. The royal mages circled me, whispering. My skin glowed faintly beneath the candlelight. Kaelin stood over me, armor half undone, jaw tight. She's barren, one healer said. Still barren, but the bond, it's alive. And then the light beneath my skin began to move. Strange markings, like liquid fire, crawled up my neck and across my arms, pulsing in rhythm with Kaelin's breathing. The mages stumbled back, terrified. I tried to speak his name. My voice came out a whisper. Kaelin. The runes flared once, bright as lightning, before everything went dark again. The last thing I heard was his voice, shaking with something I'd never heard before. Not command, not rage, fear. When I woke again, the air smelled of salt and smoke. The palace. My wrists were clean, my skin wrapped in silk, but the runes still pulsed beneath it, faint and alive. The royal shaman hovered beside my bed. His eyes were clouded white, his hands trembling over a bowl of black water. When he spoke, it was barely a whisper. If those markings reach your heart, he said, you both die. Kaelin stood behind him, silent. The shadows on his face looked heavier than his crown. Can it be stopped? He asked. The shaman shook his head. It's no curse. It's a revival, something ancient that should have stayed dead. The words hit harder than the pain in my chest. Revival. Of what? Of who? That night, Kaelin made his choice. He locked the palace doors, dismissed half the servants, and burned every report mentioning my name. From that day forward, I was no longer the barren slave from the mines. I was the advisor of fate, a mask to keep the wolves at bay. But not everyone bought the lie. Lady Ceres, the queen-in-waiting, saw me during a council session. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She had a smile trained to hide daggers. When she bowed to the king, her gaze slipped to my collarbone, the faint shimmer beneath the skin where the runes still lived. That was the moment she decided I wouldn't see another sunrise. That night, I felt her spies before I saw them. The soft scrape of boots outside my chamber, the whisper of metal unsheathed. I waited until the door creaked open, until the torchlight slid across the floor. Then I spoke. Tell your mistress she should have sent wolves. They never made it past the threshold. But sleep didn't come easily after that. When it did, it wasn't rest. It was memory bleeding into dream. I was back in the mines. Only it wasn't the slaves around me anymore. It was the council, the healer, Lady Ceres. All of them swinging picks into the stone walls, chanting something I couldn't understand. When I turned to run, their faces melted, turning into masks of gold and bone. And then I heard the king's voice calling my name, but it came from behind the walls, trapped, echoing like thunder buried deep underground. I jolted awake. My heart was racing, the air thick with the smell of iron. And then I saw it. My hands, dripping with blood. Not mine. Kaelin's cloak lay across the bed beside me, torn and stained crimson. Outside, the palace bells began to ring. When the palace bells stopped, the silence felt heavier than war. Kaelin's soldiers were dying, not from battle wounds, but from something worse. A fever that spread like smoke through steel. He brought me to the barracks, his voice low, rough. Do something. I didn't know what he meant. I'd spent a decade breaking stone, not saving lives. But when I touched the soldier's chest, his breath hitched. The gray left his eyes, and the pain came to me. It burned through my veins like molten glass. I fell to my knees, shaking, every heartbeat slower than the last. And then it stopped. Only for a second. Then it returned. Stronger. His, inside mine. The soldiers called it a miracle. The council called it blasphemy. By dawn, word had spread across the capital. The barren slave heals men with her touch. I heard them whisper in the corridors. She feeds on the Alpha's power. She steals his strength. And maybe they were right. Every time I healed someone, I felt Kalen weaken. He didn't care. He ordered me to keep doing it. Save them, he said. I'll take what comes. But when I looked at him, his skin had started to pale, the veins beneath turning dark as ink. The council gathered that night demanding my punishment. They called me witch, parasite, cursed healer. The Alpha King rose from his throne, voice steady, deadly. If she's cursed, he said, then so am I. And in front of them all, he stepped toward me. His hand brushed my neck, the bond blazing to life between us. The mark burned through my skin like fire meeting oil. Gasps filled the hall. The air cracked with the scent of ash and power. Then Kalen staggered. His eyes darkened, veins blackening like spreading smoke. I tried to reach him, but he pushed me back, whispering, "Don't move." The curse had begun. The night the curse surfaced, the palace smelled of iron and rain. Kalen hadn't slept in days. The veins beneath his skin had turned the color of smoke, crawling higher each time he touched me. I tried to stay away, but every command he gave dragged me closer. When his strength began to fade before the council, he ordered a prisoner brought in, an old man from the border mines. Shackled, limping, eyes half blind, yet smiling like he'd been waiting for this moment. "I know her," the prisoner rasped. "The girl from the Eclipse pits." The room froze. Kalen's voice hardened. "Speak." The man's laugh cracked the silence. "You call her Barren? She isn't barren. She's engineered. One of us built her that way." He coughed, blood streaking his beard, then continued. "Project Eclipse, an attempt to craft the perfect weapon. Women designed to absorb an alpha's energy and return it as decay." My stomach turned cold. Absorb. Decay. He looked straight at me. "You were never meant to breed, child. You were meant to end him." Kalen's hand trembled against the throne. "Who ordered it?" The man's breath rattled. Guards moved closer, but he waved them off. "You want a name?" His cracked lips twisted into a grin. "Ask her father." The torches flickered once, and the prisoner slumped forward, dead before he hit the floor. Kalen's soldiers searched him, found nothing but a scrap of parchment burned at the edges. One word remained. Father. Kalen turned toward me, eyes darker than I'd ever seen. "Mira," he whispered, "what have they made you?" I didn't answer, because for the first time I wasn't sure I was the victim. The council chamber smelled of perfume and lies when they arrived. My parents. Not the hollow ghosts I remembered, but draped in silk and gold, the kind of wealth only betrayal could buy. My mother's voice was soft, rehearsed. "We did what we had to, Mira. And look, you survived." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. My father stood beside her, hands folded behind his back, pretending not to notice Kalen's grip tightening on the throne's armrest. Then came the offer. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to trade. "The Northern Alpha made an offer," my father said. "He'll pay 10 times the silver for her return. She belongs to him by contract." The room went silent. Kalen rose slowly, the sound of his boots echoing like thunder. "You sold her once," he said. "Try it again, and I'll remind you what happens to traitors." My father didn't flinch. "You can't protect her from what she is." The growl that left Kalen's throat wasn't human. The guards moved, but too late. In a heartbeat, he crossed the floor and slammed my father against the marble wall. His claws broke skin. The scent of blood filled the air. I shouted his name. "Stop!" For a second, the curse shimmered across his arms, black veins spreading, reaching toward his heart. He froze, chest heaving, then dropped my father to the ground. "Get them out," he ordered. before I change my mind. The doors slammed shut behind them, leaving only the sound of my own pulse in the silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. The palace felt colder, emptier, like the air itself was holding its breath. I searched their quarters, drawers, satchels, anything that might tell me why they'd come. In a cracked wooden box beneath my father's cloak, I found it. A letter. Old. Edges burned. My name written in the same trembling script I'd seen on the prisoner's note. Mira, forgive me. I sold you to save him. The words bled into each other. Beneath them, a single line scrawled in haste. They said your womb was the cure. My hands shook. I could still hear Kaylin's breathing in the next room, heavy and uneven. And for the first time, I wondered if saving him had been worth the price I was built to pay. Morning came without light. The palace corridors were silent, emptied by fear. Kaylin hadn't spoken since the letter. He'd locked himself in the war chamber, and every guard who entered left with averted eyes and trembling hands. But I couldn't stay still. The words from the letter kept burning in my head. Your womb was the cure. I needed answers, and there was only one man who could give them. The royal healer. He waited for me in his study, surrounded by jars that still smelled of ash and moon salt. He looked older than before, shoulders sagging under secrets too heavy to carry. I slammed the parchment on his table. Tell me what my father meant. The healer's hands shook. You shouldn't have seen that. Tell me! He hesitated, then reached for a vial, thick red liquid swirling inside. Because of this, he whispered. Because you're not Barren, you're bound. Before I could speak, another voice cut through the chamber. Smooth, cold, Lady Ceres. She stepped out from the shadows, her crown tilted just enough to look careless. Enough with the lies, she said. She deserves the truth. Kaylin appeared behind her, drawn by the noise. His eyes locked on Ceres, the woman meant to be his queen. Explain, he demanded. Her smile was thin. Project Eclipse wasn't your council's doing. It was mine. The room froze. She walked toward me, gaze sharp and cruel. We needed a vessel strong enough to hold your blood, Kaylin. So we took hers. 10 years ago, while she slept beneath the mines, we infused her veins with your essence to seal the curse inside you. My breath caught. You put his blood in me? Ceres nodded. And it worked. Until now. The curse was sealed, but the bond made her impossible to kill. You're connected, King. Her body feeds your life, and your life feeds her decay. Kaylin's roar shook the walls. He lunged forward, shattering the healer's table, glass exploding across the floor. The guards rushed in, but one look from him sent them retreating. Why? He shouted. Ceres didn't flinch. Because the prophecy said the Barren one would birth the fall of kings, I couldn't risk it being true. Before Kaylin could strike, pain slammed through my chest, sharp, suffocating. My vision blurred. The glow beneath my skin pulsed, wild and blinding. Mira! He caught me as I fell, but his hands recoiled. My skin was too hot to touch. The healers scrambled back, one of them shouting, Her blood's changing. It's reacting to his. I gasped for air, the world spinning, and then everything went silent except for a faint mechanical hum. The medic's device beside me flickered, numbers flashing. One symbol blinked in red. Pregnant. Impossible. The room fell still. Even Kaylin couldn't speak. Then, on the floor beside us, the old rune burned to life once more, lines of light twisting into words across the stone. The Barren one will birth the fall of kings. The flames rose, bright and merciless, reflecting in Kaylin's eyes. And I realized the curse wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The news spread faster than wildfire. The Barren Omega, pregnant. Within hours, the entire kingdom trembled. The council sealed the palace gates, the streets filled with whispers, some praying, some calling for my execution. To them, I wasn't a miracle. I was a prophecy in human skin. Beyond the walls, the rival alphas assembled their armies. From the north came the Frost Claws. From the east, the Bloodfang Legion, all demanding the unborn heir. They said the child would carry the Alpha King's strength and the Omega's curse, a weapon or a doom depending on who claimed it first. Inside the throne room, Kalen stood like a storm barely contained. His armor was blackened by the curse, veins faintly glowing beneath his skin. He'd begun to change, stronger, but inhuman around the edges. He gripped my wrist, voice low, rough. They want you because of what's inside you, but they'll have to go through me first. I stared at his hand, the mark pulsing between us. If you keep me here, the prophecy wins. You can't protect me from destiny, Kalen. His reply came like a growl. Watch me. That night, I made my choice. While the palace slept beneath a crimson sky, I took one of the Royal Scouts' cloaks and slipped into the tunnels beneath the citadel. The air was heavy, charged, like the whole world was holding its breath. I wasn't running from him. I was running for him. Because if the curse lived, it would take him with it. By dawn, the armies clashed outside the capital walls. Thunder, steel, and fire filled the air. And in the center of it all, I felt the curse inside me awaken like something alive. The runes on my arms flared, burning white-hot. The pain was unbearable, yet I didn't scream. I reached into the earth itself, into the mark that bound me to him, and let it go. The curse burst outward like a shockwave, a silent storm of light and ash. Soldiers fell mid-charge, blades turning to dust in their hands. Even the sky seemed to shatter, clouds ripping apart in streaks of violet fire. When it ended, the battlefield was quiet. No screams, no war drums, only smoke and the faint sound of rain hitting armor. Kalen rode through the haze, calling my name. His voice echoed through the ruins, desperate, cracking. And there, in the heart of the field, he found me. I was lying on the ground, hair tangled in the ash, eyes open but empty. The rune on my chest still glowed faintly, beating once for every breath he took. He knelt beside me, hands trembling as he lifted my face. Mira. But I didn't answer. The curse had done what it was made to do, and for the first time in 10 years, the Alpha King fell to his knees. Not as a ruler, not as a warrior, but as a man watching the only soul he ever belonged to fade from his arms. It rained for 7 days after the war. The kind of rain that seeps into stone and memory. Kalen buried me himself, deep within the royal crypt beneath the palace. No servants, no guards. Just him, the torchlight, and silence thick enough to suffocate. He placed no flowers, only his crown beside my coffin. When the stone sealed shut, something inside him did too. He burned the laboratories next. Every parchment, every vial, every whisper tied to Project Eclipse. The screams of the scientists echoed through the capital until only ashes remained. From that day, the palace called him the Alpha without a heart. He no longer held counsel, no longer hunted. He walked through empty halls like a ghost wearing a crown. And when the council dared to ask when he would take another queen, he said nothing, only stared until they couldn't hold his gaze. Months crawled by. The kingdom recovered, but its king did not. Then, one night, the royal seer came running through the rain, barefoot, wild-eyed. I heard it, she gasped. Beneath the palace, a heartbeat that isn't yours. Kalen froze. At first he thought she was mad, until he heard it too. A faint rhythm echoing from beneath the marble floors of the throne room. Slow, familiar, alive. He followed it down the old corridors, through rusted gates and forgotten tunnels that led beneath the crypt. The air grew colder, thicker, humming with the same energy that once burned through his veins. The torches flickered out as he reached the chamber. The coffin was cracked open, the stone lid split down the middle, and then he saw me, not pale, not lifeless, breathing. I stood in the shadows, hair matted, eyes closed, until I spoke. "You shouldn't have come." Kaelin stepped closer, disbelief warring with relief. "Mira?" My name from his lips sounded like prayer and curse in one breath. But I wasn't the same. The mark on my skin no longer glowed silver. It burned gold. My heart beat once, and the torches reignited on their own. He reached for me, voice breaking. "You're alive." I met his eyes, calm, unflinching. "No," I said. "Not alive." I stepped into the light. The runes carved across my body pulsed with divine fire. "Not yours." His expression faltered, pain flashing across his face. And in that moment, the air itself seemed to recoil. "I'm not yours anymore, Kaelin." The flames on the walls flared higher, curling around me like golden wings. And for the first time since the curse began, it was no longer his to control. The kingdom that once bowed before the Alpha King now burned in his name. Smoke covered the horizon where palaces used to stand. Villages whispered a new name in fear and awe. The Moonborn Queen. Me, half divine, half wolf, the curse that once chained me had become my power. I no longer needed the throne. I wanted it gone. Every night my army grew. Omegas, slaves, broken soldiers who'd been forgotten by the crown. We wore no banners. We fought beneath the bleeding moon, our skin marked by the same golden runes that once damned me. But every victory carried a shadow. Because somewhere across the borderlands, Kaelin hunted me. Not as the man who once loved me, but as the king trying to erase the proof of his sin. The first time I saw him again, it was across a field of fire. His armor was cracked, his eyes hollow. We didn't speak. The ground between us did the talking, shaking under the weight of everything we'd lost. He stepped forward. "End this, Mira." "I'm trying," I said, "but you keep standing in the way." Lightning split the sky. The moon turned red. The mark on my chest flared, and so did his. Two halves of the same curse, calling for each other. The final battle was not fought with armies. It was fought with hearts that refused to die. We met beneath the shattered gate of the old capital. The air was thick with ash and prophecy. When his hand touched mine, the world stopped. Our marks ignited, gold and black colliding, burning like suns tearing through flesh. I felt his pain flood through me, every scar, every heartbeat he'd given to protect me. And beneath it, the truth. He had never tried to destroy me. He had tried to bear my curse alone. Tears blurred my vision, but my voice didn't shake. "You can't carry it anymore." He caught my face in his hands. "Then let me carry you." The bond pulsed one final time. The curse demanded payment. I leaned forward, pressed my lips to his. Soft, final, electric. And as we kissed, the darkness left him and entered me. His veins cleared. Mine burned. The light swallowed everything, sky, stone, sound, until all that was left was his arms around me and the quiet of release. When the glow faded, he was kneeling in the ruins, holding me close. My heartbeat was gone, but my mark still shimmered faintly against his chest. Above us, the blood moon began to fade back to silver. Somewhere in the distance, a single cry rose, a newborn's wail cutting through the silence. Kaelin looked up. In the rubble near the fallen gate, a cradle of light flickered. Inside it, a child. Small, breathing. On its wrist, the same golden rune that once bound us both. He whispered my name and smiled through tears. "They sold her for being barren," he said quietly, voice breaking, "but the moon sold her back."